What do you love about being outside and active?
I'm sure I've spent more time outdoors than in. That just feels like home.
Enjoy what you can do, because you never know what is around the corner.
Just being outdoors in the fresh air, it just clears my mind.
Fully immersed in nature is what brings me the most joy.
Hello and welcome back to the Outside and Active podcast, where this week I am joined by Adrienne, who, like Emma last week, was another guest speaker at the National Running Show a few weeks ago. And we're continuing on that vein of running. Now, Adrienne is the host of the Power Hour podcast, and she sits down with me and chats about her journey into running and also into the kind of social media performance coaching world that she sits in now. And she's an international TEDx speaker. She's an author and epitome of the modern digital entrepreneur. If you don't know what that means, then we chat about it in the episode. Like I say, she is a performance coach, a podcast host, and an author. She's an endurance runner, has completed more than 20 endurance races around the world. As well as all of this, she's a brand advisor specialising in wellbeing and health technology. And last year, she was named as one of the top 25 black entrepreneurs to watch by HSBC and UKBBS. Her weekly podcast, Power Hour, has over 4 million downloads and is rated 5 stars, with previous guests such as Trevor Nelson, Fern Cotton, James Clear, and Dame Kelly Holmes, who has also been on this podcast. Her book, also named Power Hour, will help you to focus on your goals and create a life that you love. Women's Health magazine said what Adrienne can't do hasn't been created yet. And British Vogue named her as the new face of wellness. And you can check out more on Adrienne's website, which is available in this podcast description. But she is absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. And just before we go into this conversation, I just want to say a massive thank you, because last month, January 2024, we had the higher listenership of this podcast in its existence. So thank you to everyone who is listening, and thank you to everyone who, when I ask this favor, shares it every single week with someone who would enjoy it just as much as you. And please do continue to do that. Because it just helps us grow and it helps us to continue bringing on fantastic guests such as Adrienne. We have some exciting things coming up in the next few months, really, really exciting different things. So please stay tuned and please keep getting more people involved. Speaking of people involved in this podcast, I want to say thank you to ZENB and Dry Robe, who are the two sponsors of this week's episode. I will chat a bit more about each of those individually later on into the episode, but for now, let's get straight on to this conversation with Adrienne. Hello, welcome to the Outside and Active podcast. Welcome to the National Running Show, where we're filming this. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Well, this is, your schedule today is very tight. You've got this, you're speaking on the stage, and then you're rushing off, and you're leaving the cold weather in England, and you're heading to Spain, which must be quite nice.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. But as you say, got here nice and early, going on stage soon, and then, I feel like I'm going to be straight to the airport. Fingers crossed I make the flight.
Good. Well, let's kick off with a piece of advice that we do in every episode. Mm-hmm. And the advice comes from a previous guest who I was actually interviewing yesterday at the show, Emma Campbell, who is a very inspirational runner and has, in 2019, was diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. Wow. And has written books and has podcasts and is very inspirational, great story. And her advice was, if someone is struggling, then offer help without asking and without expectation, because she often found that when people are saying, can I do anything, it's hard for her to say yes, because she kind of wanted to put that wall up. Whereas if someone did something, even if it's small, dropping off some milk or anything like that, it actually meant a lot more. So I thought that was quite a nice piece of advice. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And I think it's something that a lot of people actually, regardless of their circumstances, a lot of people I think find it really difficult to ask for help, to accept help. Nobody wants to feel as though, they're being a burden. And actually, ironically, I think most people, when they do ask for help, you find the person you're asking, they do want to help, but more than that, they feel needed, they feel wanted, they feel as though actually it's something that they can do to contribute. So I think sometimes it's helpful, to think about it in that way, which is give other people the opportunity to contribute and help you because they want to.
Because if you know someone that's going through a difficult time, whatever it may be, sometimes you feel, how can I be supporting this person? Should I be giving them space? Should I be, kind of supporting them there 24/7? And so sometimes it can be that difficult thing, but I thought that was quite a good piece of advice. The other thing that I ask to every guest is, what do you love about being outside and active?
Okay, so what do I love about being outside and active? So many things. I I have a lot of energy. I'm someone who has a lot of energy. I always have. I find the idea of kind of sitting still and being calm and being zen, that is not something that comes naturally to me. But I feel like, even though running is of course not sitting still, it is motion. It feels like almost like energy in motion. It feels calming, especially being outside, being in an open space. I feel like that is a time when I can, I feel calm, I can reflect, I can think about what's coming up in my day ahead, and I kind of just, and if I'm running by myself as well, then it's an opportunity for solitude. So yeah, something about being outside in big spaces, moving forward, kind of that, even just the rhythm, just like the rhythm of your feet on the floor can feel very calming for me, and very like I suppose I'm just doing one thing. Just running, that's the one thing, as opposed to, sometimes our energy can feel like we're doing everything, everywhere, all the time, but when I'm running, I'm just running.
Yeah, I'm interested to chat in a bit about how your running supports and kind of complements the amount of work that you do. But that's seems to be quite an entrepreneurial characteristic, that sort of can't sit still busyness, always thinking of things. I mean, do you have time to sort of relax, or are you constantly kind of on the go, on your, anything to do with on your phone and emails, or sometimes is it?
I do, but it's intentional. I think I've learned that I have to. I think rest and recovery isn't just sleep, and I talk about this a lot, and I say to people, they say, I just get enough sleep, but rest and recovery isn't just sleep. So you're right, I am on the go. I have work commitments, travel commitments, parenting commitments, 3 kids in the house, blended family, lots of things going on. So it is easy, and I think a lot of people say the same thing. It's easy for your schedule to be back to back from the minute you open your eyes in the morning until you hit the pillow at night. And so, rest isn't just sleep. So yes, I do have downtime. I do have time when I read. I have time when I just, I call it white space, where there's nothing scheduled, and it might just be, listening to music, pottering around, but it's very, very intentional, because if I don't do it, if I don't put white space in my schedule, in my calendar, I would, because of my natural nature, I would say yes to everything, I'd be going all the time, I'd never take that break, and I don't think it's sustainable, and I also don't think that's when we perform at our best. So when it comes to performance, which I think we'll talk about, you can't perform at your best if you are distracted, busy, rushing, tired. So yes, rest is very important, and I do create space for it every week if possible.
Now, you've been very busy in your life so far. You've seems to have done loads and loads of things. A modern digital entrepreneur, there's a few buzzwords in there. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about what that is, or who you are? I think that's it, isn't it? It's so difficult now. I think so many people are multifaceted. We all are. I'm sure you are. I'm sure everybody. You can do so many things, and I think that is one of this wonderful thing about the modern world, is that you can do so many things. But traditionally we'd be in a box, wouldn't we? So we'd be like, this person does this person does that. Where I found myself, as you said, doing so many things. I was like, okay, I might be keynote speaking today, I might be hosting a podcast and interviewing somebody, I might be doing brand consultancy and working with a brand and advising them on, in health and wellbeing and technology and innovation. I might be going to run a race and partnering with an apparel brand. It's always different, and it's exciting. And what I said to people was, actually with the modern world, you can create your own work, you can create whatever it is that you're passionate about if you want to share it with people in different ways, whether that's through social media, whether it's through podcasting, through writing. I've written one book, I'm writing another book. However you find, however you enjoy kind of sharing your ideas, sharing your insights, sharing your energy with others, just find the way to do it that you enjoy, and that, just kind of meet people where they're at. So I was doing that, and I suppose digital entrepreneur, I think actually was somebody else actually wrote that about me in a PR piece, and I thought, that kind of sums it up actually, because it's not limited to one thing. It's not even limited to one sector, it's actually saying you can do lots of different things, and on a different day it will be very different. But I think the thread that probably ties it together is probably, I suppose, my passion for people, really understanding I'm fascinated by people. Why do we do what we do? Behaviour economics, habits. Why do some people, how do we approach risk and failure? Like all these things, I've always been fascinated by people, meeting people, asking them questions, listening to their stories, what inspires them, what motivates so many people to tie up their laces and head out their door and run. What motivates so many people to say, I'm going to run 26.2 miles, and they all turn up on the same day at the start line, and you see thousands, and it's such an amazing energy. And I'm like, why do people do that? So the thread of people, the thread of passion and energy, but also the thread of innovation and change, because change is something that I
love and embrace, and again probably talk about, but I think those three things across whatever I'm doing, whatever work I'm doing with whoever, those three things kind of, I guess, always remain.
This podcast is sponsored by ZENB. Get ready to rethink plants with ZENB. Their pasta, noodles, sauces and snacks are made with whole vegetables, meaning they're not just a treat for your taste buds, they're also naturally gluten-free and higher in protein, fibre and minerals. Take their pasta, for instance. A single serving packs a staggering 17 grams of protein. And with ZENB, you can savor every bite, knowing you're fueling your body with goodness. Head over to zenb.co.uk and sign up to enjoy 20% off your first order with Active25. More information in the podcast description. So on those forms, when there's a drop down of what do you do, you're scrolling through going, I'm kind of all of these things, and all of them put together.
Yeah, you can just sometimes I just look for one that if it says author, I'll tick that. If it says broadcaster, I'll tick that.
It'll work.
Less questions, yeah.
So with people, have you always been someone that's enjoyed kind of being social and talking to people sort of throughout your life?
Yeah, I have actually.
You have to be with podcasting. You
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
enjoy talking to people and
you have to
finding
enjoy
out stories.
Yeah, you have to enjoy talking to people. You have to, I think, be interested and curious, and maybe not just, we kind of see things on the surface, but I think you have to be able to look for, read between the lines and I suppose connect the dots. And yeah, I think I've always probably been that curious person asking questions. If I think back to school, it was probably quite annoying, just asking questions. Well, why is that, why is it like that? And being curious and voracious to learn as well. I listen to so many audiobooks. I listen to, audiobook every single week because I think that's also, that curiosity and that voracious learning to think, I want to learn more about that, But
there's learning about people, but you're also helping people, and that kind of is where the performance coaching comes into it. Again, can you tell us a little bit more about what performance coaching is and how you can support people? Yeah,
sure. So performance coaching essentially is helping people to perform at their best in both work and in life. And when we think about performance as a runner or as an athlete, typically we know what that looks like. So we're like, okay, training in this way, recovering and resting this way, maybe competition. There might be some data, i.e. your PR, your personal best. That's your kind of data that you're working towards. And you know what your best performance looks like. But how do you apply that into other areas of your life? So I've worked with corporate organisations. I've gone into places where they've got hundreds of employees and talked to them about these kind of ideas and pillars and how can people perform at their best in work and in life. And essentially, the conversation around well-being and holistic well-being is much more widely known now. But I think people are actually connecting those dots between saying, okay, if I want to perform at my best, I need to be able to, and by perform I mean whatever it is you're leading that day, whether that's leading a team, delivering something at work, or running your half marathon. To be able to perform at your best, what are the preparations? What are the things you need to do? So things like sleep, things like restoring your energy, nutrition, exercise, all of those things together, relationships, all of those things.
I was going to come on to this in the end, but it seems like the kind of the perfect segue to that, about a lot of what you're talking about, a lot of what I've kind of researching you is a lot about habits and kind of routine, and that seems to kind of come under the umbrella of discipline, and that seems to be at the core of whether people want to apply for a new job or start a new hobby or find a new group of people. It's a lot of it is around, or want to better themselves for whatever reason. A lot of it does come down to the kind of habits and routines and building confidence and having discipline. How much of a role does that play in with what you do?
It's absolutely fundamental. You've completely hit the nail on the head. I think that's why so many high-performing people do things like endurance events. It's why so many high-performing people, when you ask them, what about their routines, about their week, they'll say, I'm training for a race, or I'm training for an Ironman. And it is that discipline piece. And I think once you learn that, so say, for example, you sign up to a race, you download your training plan, and you start to your habits might change. So as you said, habits, really, really important. Your habits might change. So you might think, actually, I'm going to go to bed a little bit earlier because I've got to do that long run tomorrow. Or maybe I'm going to, do a little bit of research and find out about nutrition and fueling because I really want to fuel my body. I want to feel good. Or maybe actually I'm going to drink a little bit less. I'm not going to, not going to say I'm never going to drink again, but maybe this week I'm going to, not have that glass of wine. And so you start to change your habits. But the reason is because you have a clear goal.
Okay.
And so if you take that and put it into other areas like you discussed, like your career, your finance, whatever it is, once you have that clear goal, we know that, the science of goal setting, having a clear goal, just setting a goal in itself, it changes behaviour. It changes your habits. And so for people, a lot of people now wear tech wearables, so they might track their sleep, their steps, and even seeing, so visual prompts, so seeing the data that says you did this many steps, or you had this many minutes sleep, it changes behaviour. So it's like a prompt, it's a visual cue that says, oh, again, maybe, if someone gets to 90% of their, and I'm sure a lot of runners can relate to this, to get to, for example, like 9.7k, who's going to stop?
No one stops.
Who's going to stop and go, oh, my run's done? Even if you're back at your front door, people are like, I'm just going to run to the end of the road and back. That's the kind of example, even though we're laughing, that's the kind of example of how behaviour changes when we see a visual prompt or data. So yes, habits, very, very important. Having a clear goal will change your habits because you've got an incentive to work towards. You know what the North Star is. You know why. What am I doing this for? And then once you create a habit, it's not the case. Sometimes people think, don't they, if you make a new habit, that's it forever. They'll say, how long does it take to make habits it forever? Unfortunately, I'd say that the science and the data supports the fact that habits, there's no like one size fits all. It's actually personality dependent. However, I think it does give us proof. We prove to ourselves when we do something like, set a goal and we achieve it, we prove to ourselves that actually those habits worked. And so therefore we're more likely to continue and repeat them.
This podcast is sponsored by Dry Robe, and more specifically, the Dry Robe Light. Struggle to pack your changing robe for your adventures? The super lightweight Dry Robe Light will change that. Waterproof, windproof, and made with cutting-edge recycled fabrics, it packs down into a 38cm stuff sack, making it easy to take on any adventure. Find out more and shop now at dryrobe.com. More information in the podcast description. It's interesting talking about this now, especially because we're recording this in January and it's New Year's resolution time. I think it was even yesterday was national or worldwide break your resolution day. Typical, of course, like 3 weeks into January. But people often do this kind of cold turkey or hard start of, I'm going to run, do all this time, I'm going to do this diet, I'm going to lose loads of weight. And it becomes, it's great, but it's not necessarily sustainable. So how much of your work is trying to get people to, set these goals and achieve things, but change their lives in a way that they can do it sustainably rather than in a 4-week chunk? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. It's funny, isn't it, the end of January? Although I feel like this year, maybe it's just in the work that I'm doing, but I feel like there's been this like collective shrug this year where people have kind of gone, no, you know what? I'm not changing anything this year. It feels a little bit different, But
skip this year. It's a leap year.
Doing it this time.
Do it next year.
Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? But I think, it is important when we think about whatever goal we're trying to achieve, whatever habits we're trying to make, is this a quick fix? Is this a short-term thing? Because let's be honest, in most things in life we know quick fixes, they don't work. Anything that's worth having takes time. And ultimately, again, that goal, whatever that reason is, I think coming back to, okay, why am I doing this? What do I really want? What do I really want to achieve? And then being realistic about how long it's going to take. Because let's be honest, the modern world, we're impatient. We want things to be quick. Click a button, get it now. We're all impatient. So patience is something that, again, we have to practice, myself included.
Well, I'm very guilty of the lack of patience.
Yeah, myself included. So I think sometimes it's just, zooming out and going, actually, this might take 10 weeks. This might take 6 months. But actually, in the grand scheme of our whole life, 6 months is nothing. It's really not long.
Let's put a spotlight on the running for a couple of minutes, because obviously we're at a running show. Let's chat
we
about
are
running.
Runners.
Yes, we are. And there's the 5k running, 10k running, even, your half marathons and marathons. But you've done over, 20 endurance races?
20 endurance races. Marathon is the furthest I've gone, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have said to me, when are you going to do an ultra? And I'm like,
well, that is next. Trust me. Yeah. You will do one. You'll have to, because you'll go, I'll see, can I do it?
This is it. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I will. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Who knows? However, one thing I'd say is that there's nothing wrong with picking a distance. Say, for example, if someone says, I've run 10k, I found it challenging, I really enjoyed the process, and I want to do it again. And then someone goes, you should do a marathon. And now everyone's like, oh, okay, I should do a marathon. But actually, it's like, do you really want to do a marathon? Like, if you want to, of course, if it's your goal, if you have got the desire, and great. But I think sometimes when people say it to me, the reason I haven't done it yet, maybe again with my lifestyle right now, having 3 kids, having work.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a huge commitment. Yeah. And I think putting that on myself right now, if I said, okay, great, everyone's telling me I should do it, I'll do it. I know the things I'm going to have to compromise, either my own health, and I'm going to end up injured because I'm not going to have the time, or I'm going to have to say no to other things, like, for example, maybe I can't go and watch my son play football that day because I've got to run for 3 hours. And I think it's just about knowing your goals are your goals.
Yeah.
And so not getting distracted by other people's goals, especially in the running community, because it's very encouraging and it's very supportive, but that can also be like, come on, do it, sign up.
You can see other people doing these things
and
and
it can put pressure on you.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? So
we've seen that before. But what does running do for you? Because you mentioned earlier about it being kind of a space for you. Is it time to think? Is it time to not think? Is it time to listen and take in knowledge and space, and obviously get those endorphins in as well?
Yeah, it depends. Probably all of those things, to be honest. I think, if I think back to when I first started running, and this is maybe 12, 13 years ago, I think it's probably the case for a lot of people. I'd had so many challenges in the year before. Honestly, it was probably the most challenging and difficult time of my entire life. And so I wasn't this person that's sitting in front of you now, high energy, highly motivated, I was just flat, I felt low energy, low mood, flat. And I just felt like this isn't me. Like something needs to change, And so that's actually why I started running, because I just wanted to just get moving, get out of the house, get some energy, just feel something different to what I was feeling at the time. Did
you like running to begin with, or was it a chore?
I had no idea if I was going to, but I'd never done it. So the most fun I'd ever done, I'd done track at school and I was fast, I'm like Jamaican heritage, I was fast. I do 100 metres, I was unbeaten.
Fast twitch.
100 metres, and even in the mum's races now, my kids' school. So do the 100 metres and that would be that. So the idea of running round the block for like 5 kilometres was like, what? So when I first started running, and honestly, I'm going to be really real with you, this is 12, 13 years ago, I didn't even have running shoes. I honestly think my first run was in a pair of Converse. Look at the shock. Look at the shock.
That just makes people listen. It'll make their legs hurt and feet hurt just thinking about that.
Same. But the reason I say that is because, again, sometimes it's like we look at a runner and it's like, they're a runner. Look at that. I was just a really tired new mum with a pair of Converse. Off I went. So it's definitely changed from then to now. It gave me time on my own. It gave me solitude. It gave me time to think. It gave me some kind of new energy. It kind of gave me a bit of a new persona, if I'm honest. For that, first few months, I was like, I'm getting into running. Like, maybe I'm a runner. Like I said, I'd go and buy those running shoes. I was downloading things. I was looking at stuff. I was thinking, actually, it kind of gave me, this new focus, this new joy. Signed up to my first ever race, was the Cambridge Race for Life. And I did that. And I remember, I think one of my friends and my son was actually there, and it was like, he's like 1 year old in the pushchair, but it's that thing of actually they're there to cheer you on. And I think, again, as a parent, you spend so much time obviously cheering on your kids, everything they do.
Pitch.
Exactly. So they're there to see you, and it just, it really kind of gave me new community, meeting new people, whether that was virtually on social media or actually going to, events where there was a run and meeting people. It just started this whole new world for me, whole new life, travel. I'd sign up to a race in a country that I'd never been to and be like, okay, I'm going to go and run that race. That's what I did. So many races. I think in 2019, I did 6 half marathons in 6 different cities, from Barcelona, from Paris to London to Barbados. I'm talking, I was just like, I'm going to go and run. And it's that kind of thing that it can give you so much. And for me, it has, 13 years, it's given me so much. Community, headspace, career, so many things. So it's really hard to pinpoint it down as what does running give you? It's given me, like to say, part of my identity now is that I'm a runner. It's really powerful.
I just want to ask you touched on their community and social media. I mean, that could be in a podcast in itself, social media. Just wanted to quickly ask you around, obviously it's part of your job and part of your community, but obviously there's the pros and cons of social media that is obviously well spoken about, but what's your viewpoint towards it? It gives people access to community and information, but obviously it can be then play into that sort of doom scrolling, comparing yourself to other people's lives.
Yeah, I think, I'll be honest, I think I've definitely found it to be a positive tool. Yeah. Like I said, meeting people, seeing other people as well, representation, it really matters. Yeah. Seeing other people who are, not necessarily always seeing people that look like you, that's great, but seeing people in different situations, different circumstances, different ages, different genders, different, like I said, mums, seeing different people who are all runners. I think that's, that wasn't the case before. People can't really imagine that in 2010, there was no Instagram. People can't kind of wrap their heads around it. Yeah, October 2010, the Instagram app launched, and people can't really remember their lives before that. But I think the community aspect is great. Like you said, the information, the knowledge sharing. Of course, everything has its ups and downs. Everything has its challenges. But I think for me, if I've got time, a quick, like, short anecdotal story that I'll share about social media in a time when I kind of probably thought, oh no, this is going to be awful, and it was amazing, was when I did the Berlin Marathon, well, tried to do the Berlin Marathon. It's the only race I've ever DNF'd, and I was training for it for probably about 4 months. Training went really well. I was kind of, fitter, stronger, feeling great. I'd really kind of stuck to the training plan. And so when you've done all that work, anyone who's been there and done that, you've done all that work. And then towards the end, I got an injury in my foot. I was running on the beach on sand with bare feet, and I got an injury in my foot. And I thought, well, I've done all this work. I've done 4 months of training. I'm fitter and faster and stronger than I've ever been. I can't miss this race. Like, my foot just needs to heal. Like, it's going to be fine.
I'm going to go through it.
Yeah, so mindset, I'm like, okay, mind over matter, it's going to be fine. Ridiculous, stupid. You're injured, you need to just, that's it. But I didn't want to give it up, so I flew to Berlin, and I'm in the hotel. I think I was icing my foot literally the day before, thinking, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's not a good start, is it? So, started the race. It was pain from the first kilometre.
And it's all you can think about.
It's all you can think about, and I'm like, okay, it's going to ease off, 5K. No. Anyway, I managed, I think by the time I got to 25K, I could barely even put my heel on the floor. It was just unbearable.
That's a good effort, though, considering.
But it's stupid, actually.
I know,
it's actually stupidity. It's like, why are you running with this foot? Like, it's actually stupidity. But I hobbled to the side. I'm feeling very sorry for myself, and I ended up going to, an A&E in Germany where, it was in my sweaty running stuff, feeling very sorry for myself. All this to say, so obviously online on the day, I've been posting about my training. I'm going there at the time. I was working with Adidas as a brand ambassador, and I'd done a talk all about, the race. So
it's not just the race that you're building up the pressure. There's other elements to it as well. It's the reasons that you're running to it, but still, you're injured. You probably shouldn't be doing it. And people will understand. Yeah, and sometimes you've raised a lot of money for charity. You don't want to let them down. But ultimately, we are human beings. Olympic athletes get injured and they can't compete. So a mere mortal like me should have just pulled out the race. So anyway, all this to say, I took to social media, and obviously lots of messages. How are you doing? How was the race? Like, people are following, they're tracking. Some people have seen you in the race village. They're like, wow, where they're all getting the medal. And all my friends that I could see that were there, they're all posting their pictures with their medals, and it was kind of like, where's your picture? Where are you? Well.
And I was just like, oh no. And I felt really sorry for myself, but I shared it online, and I said, look, I didn't finish the race. I've injured my foot. I'm just devastated. I feel embarrassed and all this. And honestly, the community, the messages that people sent me, it was amazing. And it was like the community, because people understand that you're human. They've probably been there themselves. Yeah. It was nothing but support, encouragement, love, genuine care.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an example where I think social media, it's not always great, but no one kind of came out and went, oh my gosh, you should have got to the finish line. You're a fraud. Everybody just went, oh wow, hope you're okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, you're in the hot seat now, but usually you're on the other side, just coming onto the Power Hour podcast.
Yeah.
When did that start, and what was the motivation behind kind of starting that and having those conversations?
Yes, so the Power Hour podcast started over 5 years ago. So I feel like I'm an OG in the podcast space, back then people were
before the boom.
Yeah, they used to ask, what's a podcast? How do you get it? Do you have to pay for it? People didn't really know much about podcasting back then. But yes, 5.5 years ago, I started the Power Hour podcast with a simple idea, which was, I want to find out, as we've discussed, I'm interested in people. What do people do with the first hour of their day? That's what I call my Power Hour. What motivates them to get up in the morning? How have they achieved what they've achieved in their lives? What do they avoid in the morning? What do people do when they first wake up? Everyone from Olympic athletes to business founders to doctors, everyone. So I started the show, and with that intention, I spoke to different people about their lives, about their careers, their achievements, their successes, their failures. And at the end of every show, I asked them, what do you do with the first hour of your day? And so it's fascinating, because some people will have this amazing, morning routine where they do an ice bath, and they do this and that and breath work and other things. Some people say every day they get up and they walk their dog or they run. Other people, it is completely different. And some people, I've heard so many different things of what people do in the morning. And I think some of the, consistent things that I've heard are around people having tech-free mornings. So just in that first hour, not looking at their phone, not looking at emails, not going onto social media or being kind of sucked into their work, but actually keeping that time. Because for the rest of the day, let's be honest, most of us are pretty available and connected. So keeping that first hour as being disconnected whether you want to run or whether you want to just read or have your coffee or whatever. But yeah, so many people. I think now we've had over 330 guests and probably over like 4 million downloads. So it's
amazing.
It's amazing to hear as well, like when people listen to it, and sometimes people have listened to it for years. And it's nice to hear they go, yeah, I listen to you while I'm running, and I listen to people's stories of inspiration, motivation. It's a real kind of feel-good show.
And it's as you as the host, and I feel this being able to being lucky to speak to loads of people, such as yourself that are at the show and previously we've had on the podcast, to be able to facilitate those conversations and take advice and things that you hear, and you probably hear, like you said, about quite similar characteristics and similar processes with some people. I mean, Dame Kelly Holmes, who's been speaking this weekend as well, and Tom Daly and Ferd Cotton, and so many people. It's interesting to hear how they live their lives. I mean, you said about the positive side of people, tech-free mornings and getting up and ice baths, but for some people, getting up in the morning is probably one of the hardest things they have to do in the day.
Yeah, you're right. And yes, it's been amazing as the host of that show for so long, as you said, to meet so many people, to be curious, to ask questions, to be able to share those conversations with others. I feel so lucky that I get to do it. I'm sure you know what it's like.
Yeah.
And especially because I interview a lot of authors as well, where I read their books, and they've done, I know what it takes to write a book, and they've done so much reading and research, and to be able to compile that actually as well, and kind of, we're so lucky now, being able to listen to so much information. It's almost like the best bits, they've done maybe 2 years of research about happiness, or 2 years of research about a certain practice or diet or breath work, and then to be able to condense that almost into an hour of listening, I think we're so lucky. And it's an hour is also long enough that you can have the conversation with nuance, you can understand, it's long form in that sense. Whereas I think social media, I guess, is more limited to that kind of, 1 minute, 2 minute. So for me, long form listening, I listen to podcasts that are an hour and a half, 2 hours. And yeah, I love to talk, so.
I love that. We've loved speaking to you. Thank you. I'm very grateful for your time, because you've got a very jam-packed day. There's only one thing that I need from you to finish this podcast. At the beginning, offered you a piece of advice from Emma. Now is your opportunity to leave a piece of advice for someone coming onto the podcast as a guest in the near future.
Okay, my piece of advice to anyone, I suppose, right now as well, would be to really embrace change. And I think we hear people talking about change, embrace change, don't be afraid of change, but change can be really scary, can be really overwhelming, and sometimes we choose change, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes change happens to us, and that can be really overwhelming. So when I say embrace change, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy, but you just don't know what it's going to bring into your life. You don't know what's going to be on the other side of it. You don't know the people, the places, the opportunities, the event. You just don't know. So if you are going through a change, if you're experiencing change, if you're afraid of change, just try and have a little bit of optimism that what's the best outcome? What could possibly happen? You probably thought about what's the worst outcome. What is the possible best outcome of this change? And get excited about that.
I love that. Look forward to passing that along, and enjoy your talk.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, the second one in season 13, chatting all about running. And thank you for listening, and thank you to Adrienne for coming onto the podcast and spending the time with me at the National Running Show to talk through your experiences and your opinions. It was really good fun. And if you think you know someone who would enjoy this episode just as much as you, then please do forward it on to them. Also, leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, and subscribe and comment. And if you're listening to this on your podcasting platform, then please do leave a review. It makes an enormous difference, and it's great to see what people say and get some feedback. You can also send us some feedback on Instagram or on Facebook, Outside and Active, and check out our website, outsideandactive.com, where you can also see the entire back catalogue of this podcast. We have some unbelievable guests on there, so please do check it out. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Outside and Active podcast. But until that time, my name has been Dominic Brown. Enjoy the outdoors.